it was really frustrating for me because I couldn't in that moment say, I'm really sorry, I have trichotillomania. Like, there isn't a name for what I had. Today I'm going to talk to you about something that I've been struggling with for 13 years and it has completely ruined my hair. So my hair has obviously since recovered from this for the most part. This was something I mainly struggled with from the age of about 14 to 17. That was when it was at its worst, and that is the compulsion to constantly split my ends. This is something I touched on a little bit in my hair story video, which went viral and lots of people saw it. Lots of people subscribed from that video, so thank you if you're still here. But yeah, I never really went into detail about that problem I had. So what this is when you basically find like a split end at the end of your hair, and it's basically when a hair has literally split. So it will look like this, or sometimes it will be split like down the hair, or sometimes it can look like a little tree thing. Splitting your end is basically finding these little split ends and like literally peeling them apart, and it goes neep, and it's really super satisfying, but it is the worst thing you can do to your hair. It is literally destroying the hair. It is even worse than bleaching your hair, I would say. Just to clarify, the hair splitting compulsion is a completely separate issue to the texture and frizz problems I started experiencing a few years ago. I know a lot of people will assume that this hair splitting compulsion was the reason I struggled with my frizz and texture, which I've made a lot of videos about. I know this is not the case because I still experienced problems with my texture and frizz even after cutting off all the damage, starting again and beating my hair splitting habit. Just had to make that clear. The reason it's the worst thing you can do for your hair is because the hair is no longer a hair anymore. It's half a hair. The whole inner cortex is completely exposed. It's ripped apart. If you imagine a tree and you take a tree from the top and you rip it right down the center of the trunk, and that's what you're left with, that's what you're doing to your hair every time you split a hair. And a lot of the time it can feel like, oh, it's just one hair. I've got like however many hundreds of thousands of hairs in my head. But when you have a compulsion to do this every single day for 3 years it took for me to completely destroy my hair, it has an effect on your hair, and this became a huge problem for me. The reason I want to talk about it is because there is not a name for this type of compulsion. There is not like a diagnosis. I have tried to research this, like splitting your hairs, there's nothing that comes up. There's not a name for it. The closest that I can relate it to is trichotillomania, which is the compulsive disorder to literally pull out your hairs. People struggle with this, like pulling out the hairs on their head, their eyelashes, their eyebrows, anywhere on the body really, but it's mainly on your head, and people can actually get like bald spots all around their head. Some people can go completely bald from this strong, unexplainable compulsion to constantly pick them out. So trichotillomania used to be considered an impulse control disorder, but it's now considered as an obsessive compulsive disorder, which is OCD. It's a repetitive disorder which is similar to addiction. It involves what's called attention, which is basically like an urge. So it's the feeling of needing to do something and having this unshakable urge to do it, and nothing's going to stop you from doing it. And once you've done it, you feel like a sort of relief, like a release. It's kind of like a soother, and that is what trichotillomania basically is. And that is the exact same thing that I have had with my hair, apart from I am not picking it out at the root. I am splitting it and destroying it from the ends. And this affected me in all the exact same ways, I would say, as trichotillomania does, except it was happening from the ends of my hair and not from the root of my hair. Okay, that came out completely wrong. Obviously, this didn't affect me the exact same way as trichotillomania does affect people, because losing the hair from the root of your head and losing a lot of it is obviously a lot more devastating and more traumatic to the skin. What I meant to say was that the experience of the compulsion itself and not being able to stop for many years is what felt the exact same as trichotillomania
is described.
I forget where I am, sometimes I don't realise I'm doing it. I can be doing it for 10, 20, 30 minutes and not even realise how much time has passed. And then I will look down and there will be all these little bits of hair all over, like even my lap or the laptop or my desk. I will just be like, oh my god, have I really like picked off that many hairs? I literally did this for years on end until there was nothing left of the ends of my hair. It was wispy, transparent, gross. All of my ends of my hair from here down were destroyed. But unfortunately for me, I was so stubborn about the fact that I wanted to keep my long hair that I was not willing to cut this all off. I could have, you know, completely just started again and cut this all off, which in hindsight I wish I would have done. That is why it got as bad as it did. The one way that it differs from trichotillomania, I would say, is that, so experts say that trichotillomania is usually like stemmed from some kind of depression or anxiety or trauma in that person. That's the only reason that my problem differs, because I didn't have depression at the time. I don't think it was caused by any kind of trauma or anxiety. I never had therapy for it, so I don't know. Maybe I was doing it from some kind of deep down anxiety, but there's nothing that I can think of that at the time would have caused me to do that. Now, although I don't think that this is trichotillomania, I just wanted to kind of talk about my story and how this actually ruined my hair, and it took years to sort out. I first found out what a split end was when I was about 13 or 14, and this is when I first started having a problem with it and I became absolutely addicted to doing it. When I was young, I didn't know anything about hair. I didn't even realize that this was damaging my hair. All I thought was, okay, there's a split end, I split it, and now there's no split end anymore, so it's gone. I thought maybe I was doing something good for my hair because I was getting rid of the split end, but oh my god, I wish I'd known. So when you're doing this every single day, it starts to affect your hair quickly. I started doing this mainly in school, so in class, if I was bored, I often got bored. I didn't like school. My triggers to do it were basically, yeah, when I was in class I was bored and I would be just stare down at my hairs and just split them, and I would lose track of time whilst I was doing this. It would be like a trance. Other triggers were like if ever there was like a lull moment, or if ever, you know, if I was like on a train or a bus and transport, or if I was like looking at a screen, so if I was doing homework or like watching a YouTube video or whatever, I was getting slightly bored of it, I would just hold my hairs up to the screen so I could see the hairs, and I would just split them, and I would be there doing it for, yeah, like 10, 20, 30 minutes at a time, multiple times every single day for about 3 years. And this is when it was at its absolute worst. And the ironic thing is that at the time I was obsessed with like long, beautiful, healthy hair. I always had long hair growing up. I've never been a short hair girl. I can't remember when it was, but a friend of mine told me that she remembered me doing it in class and like staring down at my hairs and like frown, like I would literally frown because I was so focused on like splitting these hairs. It would strain your eyes as well, and I'd just be sitting there frowning, looking at my hairs hunched over. I didn't even realise what I looked like, but she told me this and I felt so embarrassed because I realised that if she noticed it, then everyone else in the class did as well, and I felt just really embarrassed and stupid, and like I must have looked like an idiot. I went to a school that was kind of quite different from like the normal school, so our teachers had a very different way of disciplining. It was kind of like a hippy dippy kind of school. My teachers didn't really call me out on it very much. No one really ever said anything, so I just did it all the time. Another thing I should mention that's actually quite important to this story was that I was really scared of the hairdressers. I did not trust them at all. When I was a child, my mum used to cut my hair because I was so scared. Like it was literally a fear to go to the hairdressers. Like I was so scared they were going to cut off all my hair. Again, I had long hair as a child. I only trusted my mum to do it. And so as I got into my early teens, I probably only went to the hairdressers about once a year. Like I got a side fringe once. Years later, I got like a full fringe and a trim. I got layers when I was like 13, 14, and I wanted to grow. I like spent like years trying to grow these out. And my mum used to tell me like, if you want long healthy hair, you need to cut your hair. And I was so stubborn. I was like, no, I don't. Like, surely if you want long hair, you should not cut it. I knew nothing about hair. I didn't realize that obviously the longer you leave it, like uncut, the drier and more damaged the ends get, and they end up just breaking off. Or in my case, I was literally peeling them apart, destroying the hair. By the time I was 17, my hair, it looked absolutely awful. It was so wispy and dry and gross. Like the hairs were like all scraggly. It was like just a few little like rattly hairs like at the bottom, which I refused to cut, which was so dumb. Bless me, I didn't know what on earth was wrong with my hair. It was like wonky, one side was longer than the other. I didn't even know why it looked like that. It took me a while to realize that it was because I had spent 3 years splitting my ends every single day. That's what happens. So if you're the kind of person that like does this every now and then, I watched a video about split ends the other day, and like I saw in the comments like loads of people were talking about how they like find it so satisfying to peel them apart, and it is literally like, anyway, do not, because it is the worst thing you can do for your hair. So it was around this time when I was 17 that I decided I was going to make a change for my hair, and I started documenting it on YouTube. All those videos do not exist on YouTube anymore. I have since not deleted them, but they're unlisted. I might relist them again in the future on my Patreon. If you ever want to like see some old unlisted videos, check out my Patreon. It has a list of what videos are available. Yeah, so I would document every month, and I would do like a hair video. And around this time that I started getting obsessed with like these like hair social media accounts that was specifically for really long hair, and it was all these kind of like European and Russian women with this like crazy long, beautiful, thick, straight hair, and I was just obsessed, and that's all I wanted. I was just not willing to cut my hair. I was so desperate to get my hair like down to my waist or my tailbone, and so I came up with this idea that I was going to cut off a centimetre of my hair every month. It did actually work, but it took a bloody long time. It took about a year to like for my hair to kind of look a little bit more healthy again. Looking back, I could have shortcutted that and made that like 6 months if I had just cut a big chunk of it off, but I was so stubborn that I wanted to keep my long hair that I would just do a teeny tiny little bit every month. And yes, it did get better, it did work, but it took so long. If your hair is pretty healthy, it's actually a really good thing to do. If that's something you want to do for yourself, and like, you know, you don't have a very specific hairstyle, it works. So I was like 20, 21, just started university. My hair was the longest it's ever been, and it was really long and I loved it, but I had loads of issues with it. It looked horrendous from the back. This much of my hair at the back was just see-through, wispy, stringy, not even very attractive, but stubborn old me wanted my long ass, wispy, ratty hair. Around this time, I really tried to stop splitting my ends, and I came up with like a few little things, and I did manage to stop doing it to the extent I was for that 3-year period. I would try like always having a hairband on me and always putting my hair back. That helped, but I found that my hand would just literally my hand would go back and just like stare at it. It was constant, and a lot of the time I would do this without even realizing. I wouldn't even realize I was doing it. Some of the times I would know I was doing it, and the crazy thing about this like compulsive disorder is that you know that it is damaging your hair. You know that it's bad, you know that you shouldn't be doing it, but something in you cannot stop, and it's literally like a trance. And once I see one, I'll just be like, okay, if I just get this one, I know this is really bad, but if I just get this one. And that is literally the thinking pattern when you have an addiction. Anyway, I managed to kind of stop for the most part. I would still do it every now and then, but it wasn't as bad. Anyway, I was having the time of my life at uni. I was studying, getting my degree in acting. I really was passionate and I cared a lot about doing well at university. And then this one time, which was kind of like an eye-opener moment for me, because no teacher ever really called me out for it. Some teachers would maybe say like, can you pay attention please, you know, but no one would really call me out of it. And the first time a teacher actually called me out for it, like I was scared. It was our singing teacher, and he was very eccentric, he was very likable, but also he was a no bull kind of teacher. Like, everyone had mad respect for him because he was just kind of scary. Like, no one wanted to get called out by him. No one wanted to like do something wrong. He was a character, let's just put it that way. One time we were in class, he was like talking about something and I found myself doing it. I found myself bloody doing it. I don't know why I was doing it in his class, but I was doing it. And I was listening, like I was always interested in what I was hearing. Like, I was always listening. And he said to me, "Young lady, if you cannot stop playing with your hair, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the classroom." And the whole room went silent and I was so embarrassed. I remember, I think I actually tried to explain myself. I was just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, like I was listening, but I just wasn't," he wasn't having any of it. I can't remember what he said after that, but I remember feeling really frustrated because I could see that it looked like I was disengaged. It was really frustrating for me because I couldn't in that moment say, "I'm really sorry, I have trichotillomania." Like, there isn't a name for what I had, but it was obsessive compulsive disorder that I've been struggling with for years, but there was nothing I could say. Like, I couldn't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's a habit." Like, he wouldn't understand that. So it was just a frustrating moment where I couldn't quite explain myself. And I just felt so stupid. And I thought, oh my God, everyone in this class is just gonna think I'm that girl who plays with her hair and just looks disengaged and bored. And like, I just didn't want to be that girl. So I made a really big effort to not do that in front of any teachers, any of my friends, like anybody like that, because I was like, I don't want to be that person. I also tried keeping a pair of scissors on me all the time. This kind of worked sometimes if I had scissors handy. Instead of picking them, I would just chop them because it still relieved that kind of like need and that urge to get rid of the split, but it was just more healthy for my hair. This didn't really work out because I would just find that in the instances that I would feel the urge to do it, I often didn't have scissors on me. If I was like on a train or something, like I would always forget to take the scissors out with me. People have said that that has worked for them. The only thing that I ever have done that has enabled me to actually stop for a long period of time is cutting a large chunk of my hair off. So the first time I cut my hair in that My Story video, and I cut it like quite short for me, it was like up to here, I think. After doing that, I wasn't really splitting my ends a lot. Knowing that my hair was like nice and fresh and blunt at the ends, like I didn't actually want to ruin it. And also the fact that because it had just been cut, like when I would pick it up to look at it, there wasn't actually many split ends to split. So I would just put it down like quicker, which makes perfect sense. And probably the main time that I was able to stop was when I actually cut my hair a couple years ago, like the shortest I've actually ever cut it, 2 years ago. And because I actually couldn't reach my hair and like actually like look at it, like it was too close, like it would just hurt my eyes, I didn't like pick or split my hair for about a year. So that was the one thing that I've ever done that has actually enabled me to stop doing it. Since then, obviously my hair's grown longer. I don't plan on cutting it really short ever again really, but I am getting it cut more regularly nowadays. Nowadays, I don't really so much have a problem with this. I do find myself doing it every now and then. It's not like the habit is completely gone.
The habit of reaching for the ends of my hair still happens from time to time, but my ability to stop has gotten stronger, so I'm able to put my hair down before splitting or picking any hair, and only on rare occasions I end up splitting the odd hair here and there.
It's no longer to the extent that it's a problem or that it's like affecting the overall look of my hair, because it's so rare that I do it. But I thought it was really important to talk about because I haven't had anyone talk about this like being a problem. That was my story about how splitting my hair throughout my life has ruined my hair. Obviously, yeah, it's recovered now. Let this be your lesson to you. Don't split your hairs. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down in the comments below. If you'd like to see more vlogs and exclusive content from me, you can check out my Patreon below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Mwah.